Azura. Somewhere far from the outside world, in a place teeming with ancient creatures, an unusual boy spent the rest of his life. His hair was like a dish sponge, coarse and thick. The face was as normal as for a person, sparse eyebrows that were visible on the face, large eyes were closed, so their flowers could not be seen, a smooth, wrinkled nose and snow-white teeth. His ears were also ordinary, the same as those of all people in the outside world. That is, we can say that he was an ordinary person, unremarkable and somewhat bored. But there was a small problem: strange red and black limbs grew from his back. If you look closely, you can tell that these are human hands, only longer and, most likely, more deadly. The boy yawned deeply. The reason for this was a boring time spent or the lack of a worthy opponent, whom the boy would defeat in any case. As many inhabitants of this unusual world say, the guy was invincible and many times thought about giving in to his opponent. Well, supposedly to play for time and take longer to win. This invincible warrior bore the name Azura. Asuras are lower deities in Hinduism, also called demons, titans, demigods, antigods, giants, and in opposition to the Surama gods. This creature constantly demands power in wars. That is why Azura loved the arrival of new opponents and victory over them. In this way he showed his superiority. At this moment, Azura listened to his opponent's words. This monster had red skin, which at the angle of lighting shimmered either into a more saturated red or into black. His eyes were small, like moles on his body. The nose is straight, but distorted by anger towards Azura. The monster's teeth were pointed and complemented the evil smile. Long brown hair was pulled back. He shouted the same phrase, "Azura, you bastard." Most likely, the monster already knew that it would fail in a fight with a warrior. Therefore, this phrase flew from his lips, black with anger, over and over again. Or maybe he was angry that Azura was too calm and not interested in the fight. "How dare you yawn during our battle?" he shouted, clenching his hands into fists. They were both having fun in the air so that their bodies could be seen. The monster that came to fight the warrior was twice his size. His muscles bulged with growing anger, and the spikes that grew from his elbows sparkled in the light that this world gave off. Azura, like a true warrior, looked calm and confident. His right leg was crossed over his right, and his face was supported by his right hand. "You're too weak for Tupun," was the only thing the warrior said for the first time in the time he and the monster had been, so far, in a verbal altercation. Tapana is the 8th compartment of hell, that is, the 8th circle of hell. The outside world called it so because it is in it that the most difficult trials take place, the most monsters, demons, ghouls live on its territory and, dying, the human soul would not want to go there for any rewards or money. Although this world is cruel to its new inhabitants and guests, outwardly it does not look so terrible. The cloudy sand color is more pleasant to the eye, but at the same time beautifully emphasizes all the possible flaws and advantages of the inhabitants of this peculiar town. The rocks, which have been turned upside down, are twisty and strong. The only thing that can move them is a scream or the sounds of fights between those who want to show their strength to each other. "This is so boring," Asur continued. The redskin became even more angry. His little beads, the ones that replace his eyes, were filled with blood, and his teeth cut into his gums to such an extent that his red lips turned almost black. His sharp ears became acute to hear everything that was happening around him. Tired of the ridicule of the invincible warrior, the monster began to use magic to finally end this whole undertaking. His stomach began to stretch, and fire came out of it, bright and deadly. In an instant, teeth even sharper, but less common, grew out of, so to speak, the mouth. The monster lowered his head without removing his satisfied grin. He looked at his stomach in victory and mentally rejoiced and called himself a winner. The red man screamed loudly and called his creation the Infinity Fighter. Having finished summoning magic, the monster raised his head and said, "You bastard." He repeated this over and over again, like a mantra, like an instruction, like a parting word for a future battle. The Azura did not move all this time. He calmly continued to hang in the air and watch what else his potential opponent would reveal. The monster at that moment, quickly and unexpectedly, directed a beam of summon magic at the warrior. A random infinity slap reached Azura, causing him to throw all of his 6 arms back. The impact caused a large sound wave. A characteristic bang enveloped the entire city, and the sound made the mountain's shifters move. Both warriors scattered in different directions. The monster, not seeing anything other than the wave that was made with his help, hoped that he had defeated the invincible Azura. He rejoiced at his victory. His smile and sharp teeth gave him an even more frightening appearance, and the beads instead of eyes sparkled with gloating and at the same time joy, because now, while he no less thinks so, Ahura has taken the place and the whole world will bow to him. But the monster began to rejoice early. Ahura, quickly reacting, rose up. It turns out that in order to avoid being hit by magic in his thin but strong body, the warrior jumped back. The wave, which was provoked by the blow of magic, did not even hit the guy by a millimeter. He watched it all from the very top. This all amused him, and he even thought that for the first time in a long time, he had a worthy opponent and playing catch-up with him would be very useful. Just one cute thing. But despite all this, the game won't last long. Ahura closed his eyes and took a deep breath of air. Because of this body movement, his muscles tensed, and the pattern on his chest rose, one might say, just above his small chin. Thoughts were cleared, the face shone with calmness and devastation, hands were lowered. He always did this before a fight to be sure of victory. It is calmness, as he thinks, that is the basis of any victory, despite the enemy and his strength. He already felt that his ability to redirect magic had killed the enemy, so he did not make any more sudden movements, but simply hovered in the air, which smelled like socks worn for 3 or even 4 weeks. Having finished with this ritual, Ahura, without opening his eyes, turned and chuckled loudly. He felt that more than 5 pairs of eyes were looking at him. He was the first opponent in a long time, said the warrior. Other residents of the town watched his monologue. They cheered on the walls and cautiously looked out at Ahura with their yellow eyes. The red skin was very stretched and made it possible to see their bones. In a word, thin, but perhaps it's just the structure of the body, because the souls of sinners come almost every day. So a lot of food ends up in their hands and mouths. Every single one of them felt fear and trembled from it. The creatures were hiding and making sure that, God forbid, he turned towards them. The mouths were open, and the limbs, which looked like hands, grabbed walls and mountains in order to hide in time and quickly run up. Ahura was still cheerful in the air, and all his hands were lowered. His face looked at the sandy walls. He kept thinking about everyone he had defeated. How they tried to win their battle, how they jumped out of their way to take his place. After all these battles, there is no one strong enough to defeat me, Ahura monologued in a frustrated voice. Ahura repeated these words in his head every new day. He recalled all the moments when he killed his opponents. Despite the fact that it was impossible to die in hell, the opponents did not return and did not try to take the place of Ahura again. They returned to life and were afraid to approach the territory where the warrior lived. The warrior, still not opening his eyes, continued to conduct a monologue. He has 6 arms, 2 that each person had and 4 that acted as his weapons. What he did not do to win, caused fire that incinerated the enemy to the last finger or accelerated to the speed of light, which simply knocked the life out of the enemy. They can't die in hell, Asur continued. Where is their willpower? The warrior still did not open his eyes. His mind was filled with only a single phrase, what should I do now, because after this redskin no one will come to fight. Aram began to understand that he was losing the meaning of life. Tupun was still the same despite the fight that took place literally 5 to 10 minutes ago. The mountains still hung from the ceiling, and those on the floor were sharp and high. If you look from a distance, you can conclude that all the existing convolutions in the relief flowed like custard from a cupcake. The same sandy color was relaxing, but only for the arriving souls. Local residents could no longer look at these local historians, they were simply sick, because they had been living here for years, or even millennia. The demons, who were responsible for everything that happens here, were doing whatever they wanted. One lay and laughed watching the monster who was hitting his body with an axe. Such entertainment was commonplace for them, because in hell they do not die, they are only reborn in new terrible forms. Their scary smiles instill fear in newly arrived souls. Others were also doing unusual things. A demon in brown form had the temerity to come during lunch. 3 red-skinned monsters, without thinking twice, decided to have dessert. They, mercilessly, tore apart the demon or soul, which was brown in color, and began to rejoice. The bones of the distorted body were clearly visible and it was clear that his spine was distorted. The victim's head was lying on the mountain, and the right side, along with the arm, had already begun to be devoured. The demons rejoiced like children and laughed as they devoured the remains of another resident of the town. At this time, despite all the noise and commotion around, Asur was sleeping peacefully and snoring so that all the demons of the town heard it, but still did not risk taking his place as the invincible. The guy lay down on a rounded piece of mountain, probably specially prepared by himself. His two arms, which acted as weapons, were locked on his stomach, and the others supported his small head. Pale arms were spread out in different directions, and legs were straight outstretched. His temple enveloped the entire Tupun. The face was relaxed and the mouth was slightly open. The eyes were closed, but at the same time the eyelids fluttered easily from inhalation and exhalation during dreams. But suddenly Azura felt a bright white light through his closed eyelids. He did not understand what was happening and what was causing this surge of energy. He rose to almost his full height, covering his eyes with his three hands. The warrior still didn't understand what it was all about. His face was distorted with discontent, and his torso was tense, which made the tattoo on his arm seem even more beautiful and expressive. The guy opened his eyes and felt a strange tingling and burning sensation. His smooth nose smelled a strange smell, and his ears began to hear a loud sound from above. He looked up and saw something he didn't expect. It is unclear from where a huge human hand fell on him. Asur waited to see what would happen next. The 5 fingers of this hand stood straight, and the speed of its movements disrupted the wind that was taking over the entire hellish town. The veins on it were tense, which makes it clear, he or she squeezed out all their strength to achieve the goal. Azura sat in joyful shock. He crumpled with all his heart, but a slight fear still showed on his face. His body tensed, and all 6 arms were ready for the growing fight. A smile, despite the situation, still remained on his face. The sweat that began to appear on the guy's forehead gradually flowed down to his cheeks and long neck. The tattoo on his chest stretched even more than it had during the last fight. Azura didn't have to wait long. The blow hit him in the head. His smile fell from his face only because he was flattened. The head from the shape of a ball changed into an ordinary flat cake, the nose bent, the teeth sunk into the lips, the eyes closed involuntarily, and a slight pain pierced his head. But this did not bother him at all, because he had more than once felt pain of a different nature, a blow to the chest, needles in legs, numbness in hands and so on. After pausing for literally 5 seconds, the hand completely fell on Azura. The warrior did not feel anything like that, because he was accustomed to fights and their consequences. The hand, after striking, lingered on the guy's body. The shock wave was so strong that the walls in the town began to move. Crushed. The voice, probably the owner of the same hand, said loudly and joyfully. The wind rose again, fast and destructive. This giant felt a characteristic burning sensation in the palm that lay on Azura. The new enemy of the invincible was not going to retreat. He held out for his last blood, or until the last moment, until, according to his calculations, Asur would suffocate. But this kind of laughter from the aggressor did not work. The Azura, having gathered up his energy and used it, served the hand of the new enemy. The wind rose again, only this time, the wind did not hit the walls, but raised a heap of dust from the sandy floor. All the magical waves had already dissipated, and Azura stood still and looked exactly at the place where this large and powerful hand had appeared. His face acquired aggression mixed with excitement. Who did it? The invincible warrior asked loudly. His 6 arms were in a ready state. He bent over into a donut position and tried to look out for a new opponent. His mouth stretched out in a cheerful expression, and his legs were ready to quickly take off and quickly deal with the one who disturbed his sleep. I didn't know that there was someone so strong in hell. Asur shouted joyfully with a wide smile on his face. Nice to meet you. The guy forgot what it was like to fight a strong and cunning opponent. What is it like to feel the growing excitement and surge of new energy, how it is to fight fiercely with the aggressor and go to victory for a long time and difficultly. The Azura rejoiced, laughed, shouted, and jumped on the spot. He finally found what he was looking for, a worthy opponent who, by 70%, can take his place as invincible in the hellish city of Tupun. The warrior's eyes sparkled with rage and joy. He was ready for another fight. Now Azura has completely changed the situation completely. He became as straight as a string on a guitar, and his hands were in the same amount of joy in the air and were ready to strike, call forth magic or something else. His muscles tensed so much that sweat began to flow all over his body. Let's fight! He shouted further, looking at the hole at the very top of the city wall. It emitted light, but not so bright, to illuminate all areas of the walls and floor. It was small, and Asur began to wonder how such a gigantic hand could even get through there, much less accelerate so much to strike. And then, after a short wait, Asur saw his potential rival. This creature turned out to be an ordinary man of Asian appearance. He was too thin, with golden hair and thin eyebrows. His ears were too stretched at the base of the lobes. His short haircut gave him some childish features to his face. He was in the air, and the magic was contained in a plate-like sphere that hung behind him at head level. The eyes, narrow, like a thin rope, were closed. My God, this volunteer, who supposedly came to fight, began to say, a pathetic demon. You continue to drown in the abundance of battles, unable to break out of this cycle of life. That is, he, a strong god, demon, or just some kind of creature, did not come to fight and not to take the place of Azura. He arrived to pull him out of the pool in which he had been for years or centuries. To put it another way, to tear him out of the life of a warrior in battles, that is, to deprive him of the meaning of life. Only there is a problem with all this. Asur did not want this. It was the only thing that kept him afloat in this damned hellish city. I came to help you achieve nirvana, the new enemy Azura finished his monologue. But the guy didn't like it. All this talk about liberation and rest did not inspire Azura at all. He had been waiting for so long for one of the strongest fighters in all the circles of hell, and his own in particular, that he was not going to listen to the nonsense that this magician, god or demon was telling him. It doesn't really matter who or what he is, what's more important is the fight, which must definitely take place. Until then, the boy thought no less. His wide smile looked more like a grin than joy. The hands were still ready for use, and the erection of the legs did not move even a centimeter. I don't need nirvana. Asur shouted so loudly that the walls in the hellish city trembled. The floor at his feet also shook. There was no limit to the strength of his indignation. He was hungry for a fight. He wanted to show this creature all his strength and power, and in simple words, to show him his low place in the hierarchy. Cinnamon hair stood on end as a result of his direct aggression towards the new enemy. I only need battles. He yelled so loudly that an ordinary man would have lost his voice long ago and would not have been able to speak for about 2 weeks. His eyes turned even whiter with anger and excitement. The teeth were floating in the air, as if knocked out of his miniature jaw. His nose wrinkled so that his expression inspired fear. It felt like Azura went crazy in an instant. Yes, exactly. You were born in the fighting pits of Avicii, the mysterious guy continued to speak slowly and calmly, hovering in the air and emitting a bright golden light. That's why wrestling is all you know and can do. After this, the unknown fell silent again and still remained calm. His hands were clasped behind his thin back. From this angle, Asur could see him better. The boy, the magician, was dressed in a dark yellow long shirt, which was tied at the waist with a marsh-colored strap made of the simplest fabric. The blonde wore a vest over the top, which suited his full look perfectly. He flew from side to side, thinking out loud, which greatly confused Azura. The multi-armed man still stood in place and did not understand what the fuck was happening. Why doesn't this daredevil attack? Fears? Not confident in your skills? And why the fuck does he speak to him with such calmness? Yeah, that's exactly what knocked down Azura's mood, the calmness of his opponent, because all the time in all the damn fights he himself was the side of calm. It was he who always infuriated his opponent with his bored look or self-confident smile. Now Asur understood what kind of creatures it was to see all this and how angry they were with him. My arms were already aching from tension, and sweat was still dripping down my pumped-up body. My legs began to ache from standing in one place, and the tattoo on my chest shone even more, because it was wet with sweat. So, the blonde continued, you have become a creature who has nothing left but battles. But he's right. Azura had nothing but fights and battles. No childhood, no youth, no joy, no love. Throughout his not so long, but not short life, the demon was engaged only in fights. The blonde thought out loud with a sad face. He felt no fear towards Azura and his martial arts, only sympathy. The eyes were also closed and did not react in any way to the wind, or the sand that fell from the walls, or to Azura's words. But the warrior at that time was seething with anger and, if he had been able to, would have spat poison. His mechanical arms were still ready to strike if the enemy decided to start a fight. The face was burning, no, blazing, with rage. He wanted a fight. He wanted to smear this creature against the wall. He wanted to prove again that he is the strongest demon of this Andean city. He needs this vitally. All souls eventually achieve peace and leave in peace. But Azura, you couldn't, the guy who appeared about 10 minutes ago calmly said again. He had long known the whole history of Azura, how and where he grew up and how he showed himself in this world. Azura became even more angry. He was tired of these meaningless conversations. He already wanted to quickly start a fight, be sure to explain and go back to sleep, as he had been up to that moment. I already told you. I don't need these conversations with you. I want to fight with you. He continues to not react to Azura's passive aggression towards him. Buddha, yes, it was Buddha who came to Azura to restore justice. God sits in the lotus position, with a wide smile on his face. And now, only now, having allowed his brain to think and his eyes to see, Azura realized that the circle behind him was a halo. Because you can't let go of anything, you keep moving away from heaven, said the Buddha. This phrase among the gods of the upper world has many meanings. It can indicate that Buddhism is too focused on the past and does not allow beings to move forward. There may also be an explanation that even the great God himself, who appeared, essentially, to the fallen, is not ideal and can also make mistakes. The last concept of this meaning is that we are all confirmed by temptation and that we must learn to let go of things that we cannot change. In the situation with Azura, he cannot let go of what is supposedly destined for him by fate, but everyone in the afterlife does not believe in fate and everything connected with it. Stop this nonsense and let's fight! Asura shouted. He continued to scream. His tattoo went up and down. Azura's face showed confusion this time. He did not understand what would happen next, but he knew for sure that the cherished battle would not happen. There was no end to his disappointment. During this long time he has waited worthy of a warrior, and in return he receives only monologues and meaningless conversations. Azura knew that people don't die in this fucking world, but there is no normal life in it either. If he were in the world of mortal souls, people would think that he was in a state of emotional turmoil or confirmed by violence from some person. Although good people could also say that he is also calling people to a rally. Buddha's calm knew no bounds. His calm and at the same time happy face still did not react to all the movements of Azura. The only thing that moves is the ears. Due to the fact that their length is prohibitive, they quickly follow his even small movements. I will tell you about your new and possible enemy, who will help you understand this, Buddha said slowly and clearly. Azura, for the first time in this very tense moment, showed a smile on his small face again. The eyes sparkled with such desired excitement. He already imagined how he would deal with the strongest enemy in this world, how he would fly from wall to wall, how he would again use his miraculous magic and an energy ball that could incinerate the enemy, and how fiercely this volunteer would gnawing out victory. Azura is the embodiment of evil, there is no other way to express it. Soon a higher being with absolute power will appear. Asura cried emotionally. The Buddha had the same unwavering face. He expected such a reaction from Azura, because only wars pleased his damned soul. To defeat the evil within him, you need to kill his body. For this purpose the Buddha came, to restore great glory to the name of Azura again. He needs to be shown that pride and self-confidence do not always bring a positive result, that his invincibility is not a cry for everything that he supposedly went for all these centuries. His name is Sakra Devanam Indrak, the Buddha continued, also known as Indra. Indra is the most popular god in the Rigveda in terms of the number of mentions. King of the gods and ruler of the heavenly kingdom in Vedism and Hinduism. He is the lord of Svarga, heaven, also known as Indraloka, where there is joy in mental and physical existence and there is no death. Azura was pleasantly shocked. He long and tediously dreamed of a worthy opponent. He always wanted this, to fight with someone who really was unbeatable in certain situations. His dream will soon come true. He waited for this, and this time he will use all possible spells to win. For the first time in all this time, he, so to speak, was glad and happy. Azura's hair was still floating in the air. Looking at Azura, it seemed to Buddha that excitement flashed in his eyes, so he said, "Is he stronger than you?" Of course not. Buddha understood that Azura had a lot of mind and he realized that Indra was twice as strong as him. And only after this realization, God realized, for the first time in how long, Azura is afraid. Afraid of being defeated and losing his championship in the hellish city. What the heck? Then I want to fight you. Asura shouted. He began to bargain with God. Buddha calculated this as fear, but did not speak his thoughts. Every strong opponent has his own weaknesses, the main thing is to find them, said Buddha. God still calmly watched Azura. He wondered what else the devil could give out, just so as not to fight with another powerful demon. Azura, this is exactly the kind of opponent you need, said God. The devil froze in one position. His face lit up with a crazy smile to hide his fear. The eyes became more rounded, and all the arms, both integral with the body and mechanical ones, were lowered at body level. Veins popped out all over my body, and the tattoo seemed to fade in an instant. Yeah, this particular fight could be Azura's last as the invincible being in the hellish town of Tapana. Buddha began to gradually open his small eyes. They were white as snow and narrow as reeds in the field of the human world. His mind listened to every word and every movement of the Azura war demon. God loved watching how tense he was and how his joyful smile grew into a puzzled grin. "You never know what will happen next," said God. "But if Indra is not good enough for you, then you can fight me." The Buddha knew that the Azura had to be interested in the right way. After all, every inhabitant of the pit, the one where the demon was born and raised, dreamed of this fight. They wanted to prove their strength and power, but they forgot that Buddha is God and, therefore, stronger than everyone else combined. He was still hovering in the air, but already sitting in the lotus position. This pose showed that he was in peace and balance of soul. It also emphasizes spiritual strength and invisible willpower. Azura quickly changed his face. A satisfied grin began to light up his face. The chest was tense again and the arms were separated on 4 sides. The tattoo on his chest tightened and his muscles grew by leaps and bounds. His abs were twitching, either from an ominous laugh or from the cry that he emitted in the format of joy. "Fine." Azura agreed with the words of Buddha. "The main thing is that I can avoid this boredom." Boredom, this is probably just a defensive reaction of a demon, thought Buddha, like earthly creatures. Defensiveness is an unconscious psychological mechanism that reduces anxiety arising from unacceptable or potentially harmful stimuli. This is exactly the conclusion God made when he looked at Azura. The boy tries not to show his fear, but this did not go unnoticed by the Buddha. "Where should I go to meet him?" Asur asked loudly. The demon was ready to fight right now. It won't be difficult to defeat Indra, Azura thinks. But there is a small problem. God is stronger than the demon. Indra is a powerful god. He can lift heavy objects and fight any demons and is sure to win it. God also has divine power that allows him to control the weather, thunder, and lightning, which is how he defeats his opponent. He is the supreme god and has power over all other gods and goddesses except Buddha. He killed the demon Vritra, who blocked the earthlings' path to the rain, defeated more than one demon Azura, relatives of our Azura, who now stands before the supreme ruler in battle, created the Sarasvati river, where the purest water flows in all worlds, both in the upper and in all 8 worlds of hell. For people, this god personifies strength and courage, so all the inhabitants of the earth worship him more than other existing deities, even Buddha. That is, finally Asur will meet with a worthy fighter and, moreover, will be able not only to have fun, but also to avenge his brothers and sisters who died in fights. Buddha continued to conduct the dialogue calmly and, if I may say so, calmly. To the world of the living, the deity said carefully. Azura's tongue was taken away and his voice along with it. To the world of the living. God, although demons never used this expression. He didn't want to go there, everything there was strange and not unusual. The devices with which the inhabitants of this world moved constantly emitted strange sounds, either the growl of a large beast, or such a loud and ringing sound that it blocked the ears. People, as they were called all over the world, behaved amazingly. They were constantly in a hurry somewhere, holding some kind of too small vase in their hands, or they shouted loudly into a plastic box, or they held hands and kissed. Azura had only been to the world of the living a couple of times, but he no longer loved it. He found out what kind of device it was for transportation. The pitiful people called it a car. He heard this name by chance, when 2 men were shouting at each other and waving their arms. The demon also learned the meaning of the words accident, telephone, road, dog, and much more. And the scary vases were just plastic cups of coffee or tea, which mortals drink to supposedly cheer up. Asur took the risk of trying the name of the coffee from the girl who decided to treat him. It tasted terrible. The demon became hardened, began to spit and shouted at the girl. She said in tears that she was doing the right thing, that she was devoting time and freedom to animals. The fact that Azura was shocked is an understatement. What is an animal? In his hellish city there were only demons and sinful souls. So he decided to follow Jude, the same girl, to look at it. He saw a larger and taller building in front of him and so he simply entered there. The demon saw something he had not seen until that moment. In the cages, he knew this meaning very well, because as punishment for mistakes in his school they were put in magical cages, the bars of which could not be broken or broken in any way, creatures with tails and mustaches, shaggy and bald, some were without paws. Later, upon inquiring, he learned that this place was called House of Four Paws. There lived unfortunate animals who were abandoned by these same beloved mortal creatures. From the moment the highest gods learned about his adventures in the mortal world, the passage there was closed to him, forever. But now, it seems, this ban will subside, and Asur will again come out to the pathetic people. Alive! The demon shouted in a surprised voice. He hasn't been there for a very long time, which means, according to Asura's logic, many structures and rules have changed and his knowledge about this world is nothing, but how can I get there? Yes, it was a logical question. After Asura began to devote time to individual mortals, the gods of the upper world blocked access to them. This list included not only Asura, but also many other demons and gods. The law of these two worlds, dark and light, said, we, beings above, the sun, the moon and all living things, are forbidden to lead a life with mortals. This decree was issued a long time ago by the god Zaruru, who was cheated on by his beloved goddess with a mortal. She was naturally executed, and the person was forced to forget her. Of course, now the rules have been changed, people have become more religious, and the gods have begun to provide the opportunity to work off sins. Buddha was not at a loss. His face still radiated calmness and not a single muscle moved. The only thing that gave even the slightest idea that he was alive was his nose, which twitched from the smell of rot and burning that lived in this hellish circle. He smashed his hands measuredly and spoke again. You'll have to find your own way. God knew that it would be very difficult for the demon, because to enter the mortal world you need to try very hard. So to speak, show a little kindness to the world you need to go into. This is exactly what has changed in the rules regarding going to the world of the living, but mortals, you can go there of your own free will, but only after the door sees your kindness and sympathy. The desire to make the world a better place has taken a sinful soul or put it on the path of confession, in other words, correct all your bad deeds. That's why the demons of war panicked. He didn't know how to be kind, show sympathy, or help someone. His main skill was to take a life and then mock it in his city, where, in his opinion, he was in charge. Tell me how to do it. Tell me what is needed for me to pass this first test. What should I do? What? Asur began to shout. It was at this moment that the Buddha realized that the demon who held the fear of all mortals and countless in this or that world had finally become vulnerable. For the first time in the age of God, she showed this weakness that was eating him from the inside. I read all the information in the eyes of Asura that was needed, God said. You will have to pay a high price for a short journey. Despite the problem with this situation and their dialogue, Asura still remained angry and emotionless. He still wanted to incinerate, bite the throat, tear off the head of this supreme being. Buddha, like this entire dialogue, remained unshaken. He needed to bring the matter to the end, to show Asura that he could change his life for the better, return to heaven again and do good deeds, help those in need and those who repent of what they had done. But Asura had completely different plans for his eternal life. He was not going to return to heaven under any pretext, to be a god and sleep souls. He liked cruelty, the suffering of sinners and fights, bloody and victorious. No matter how much he said that he needed a worthy opponent, all the same, in his little head there was the fear of becoming defeated, losing his place in hell and the fear of everyone who surrounded him. I can do anything. I will pay this price. I am Asura, the strongest of all in hell. No one and nothing will stop me on the way to my goal. He yelled. While shouting this, he never faltered, as if he repeated this mantra every single day. His mouth was wide open, so that if there were flies or any beetles in Tupun, they would definitely fly there, smelling the smell of rotten meat and blood. Asura's teeth appeared even whiter, probably due to the angle of the light that fell on his muzzle. The eyes seemed crazy, like those of a mortal with schizophrenia. The nose was wrinkled and resembled a potato. The tongue was brown, since demons and mortals have different physiology. And then Asur began to remember everything that the emus were told and shown at school. Their teacher was tall and scary at the same time. It turned out that he was the highest demon of the 8th circle of hell. All the lessons that were mandatory for the future warrior were taught by him. Humans are mortal creatures created by God. Demons are fallen angels who were expelled from heaven for disobedience to God, said the demon teacher. History, as this item could be called, always did not like Asura, because it reminded him of his origin and destiny, which supposedly could not be changed. If we consider the factor of nature, then we can say that people are physical beings with bodies and souls. Demons are spiritual beings that do not have a physical shell, that is, a body. Considering their goals, we can say that the main goal and task of a person is the glorification of God and the salvation of his souls. If during his life he managed to commit an atrocity, the demon pursues other goals to harm people and seduce them into the path of evil. This is done so that in all worlds, the world of the high gods, simply paradise, the world of the fallen gods, that is, hell and the mortal world, there is a balance of good and evil. As you already understand, the nature of affairs and in general human life is a free choice of what to do where and when, and we, the fallen gods, adhere to only one principle: evil. Asur did not know why he remembered this lesson. Why did his brain reveal this right now? Probably because soon he will have to go to the mortal world to fight such a desired opponent. At this time, the Buddha just bowed his head. He assumed this would happen. Having studied Asura for many years, God knew that he was self-confident, selfish and too proud. After all, it was all this that influenced his expulsion from paradise. The demon, having made a huge mistake, instead of repenting and apologizing for what he had done, simply remained proudly silent. Yes, pride gave him what he has now and, perhaps, ruined his life, which could have been completely different. Ha, the Supreme One laughed before saying the main thing. What should have been said a long time ago: Asura, haste always ruins everything. But Buddha is right. Haste leads to mistakes, because when you do something quickly and without concentration, you end up with a mess and mistakes, which are therefore very difficult to correct. The teachings of the gods say correctly, you need to be responsible for every action. I don't care. Asur shouted. Again, looking at Buddha, he plunged into the memories of childhood and youth. It was another lesson with this old and sinister demon. But as everyone in the makeshift class learned, today would be their first class where they would learn martial arts and summon magic. Therefore, the teacher began to tell step by step everything that needs to be done. The stages of summoning magic may vary depending on the specific tradition or school of magic. However, a long time ago the formulas and stages of all this were derived. So, let's take a pen and write, said the supreme demon. The first stage is preparation. This stage includes collecting the necessary materials and tools, as well as creating the proper environment. In some cases, a cleansing or protection ritual may be required. But, after the 5th to 7th time, you will be able to summon it simply by the power of thought. The next stage is the actual call. At this stage, you my demons turn to the source of magical power, be it a spirit, god or goddess, or to natural forces. The invocation may be made through words, gestures, symbols, or other means. It is not necessary to turn to the gods, the teacher said with a smile. The third stage is called transformation. At this stage, the demon converts its own energy into magical energy. This can be done through meditation, visualization, or other techniques that we will definitely explore. And the last stage is manifestation. At this stage, you, like trained demons, direct magical energy to achieve the desired result. This can be done through spells, rituals, or other methods. Why did Asur think again? Why does he remember all this? Why exactly these moments? Or maybe the Buddha himself forces the Asura mind to throw out these moments. At this time, Buddha watched the demon's body movements and carefully caught his looks, words, and emotions. After a 5-minute pause, Asur spoke. I can pay any price to get what I want. The demon shouted, raising his hand and clenching it into a fist. The grin would be like that of a wounded animal, which can attack in order to defend itself, and only then lick its wounds. Mechanical arms repeated the movement of the main arm, and the hair stood in the air. My God, what a stupid demon, said Buddha. For the first time in all this time, he changed the situation. His left hand took his chin, as any two-legged creature usually does when he is thinking about something. Now God was thinking about how to complicate Asura's task and what payment to take for him to go to the mortal world. He was not going to think for a long time, so he almost immediately decided what to do and how to do it. This is the main point in his plan to complicate the test for Asura. He began to act. The god slowly descended to Asura, circled him and stopped behind his back. He slowly extended his hands forward, grabbing the wheel from which mechanical arms grew. After standing for a minute, he carefully pulled it away from Asura's back and placed it in front of him. In a word, he removed the mechanism that acted as Asura's weapon. That's it, said Buddha, with a satisfied voice, and his decision, which will definitely change the course of the upcoming battle. The demon did not understand all this, everything was happening. He stood in a stupor and bewilderment, not moving and not understanding what was happening. And now, again, before his eyes, there was a lesson where they first tried to fight hand to hand. His eyes watched all the movements and words of the teacher with which he accompanied the exercises. The stages of combat can be divided into the following main stages, the teacher began to tell. Preparation. This stage includes collecting information about the enemy, planning actions, and preparing equipment. He is, so to speak, the main one in this entire hierarchy. Start of the battle. This stage involves attacking the enemy or defending against his attack. But before you attack yourself, study the blocks that the enemy can put against your attacks. The main phase of the battle. This stage includes active interaction with the enemy with the goal of defeating him. And it is at this stage that you begin to act, because you are still cheerful, but your enemy is not. And the last thing is the end of the battle. This stage involves pursuing the enemy or retreating. Everything is fine now. It was these words that brought Azura out of his trance. He looked around at everything that was happening and felt a strange sensation. This was his first time. It has become easier for him to move, he feels less force on his shoulders, and his legs stand very straight, as if there is no weight. Azura slowly turned around and was completely stunned by what he saw. Buddha held his mechanism in his hands. His mother is a weapon, without which he is almost powerless. What the hell? Asura shouted. He, turning around his whole body, realized that the Buddha had disappeared and with him his mechanical arms and main weapon. Where have you been? The demon angrily asked the void in front of him, where the powerful god had been flying in the air for literally 5 minutes. Give me back my hands, you bastard. This is the only thing Asura could squeeze out of himself, choking with anger. The demon looked around, trying to find who stole his mechanism, thanks to which he always defeated his opponents. It was his weapon, because it included both the ability to summon magic without the power of thought and a blow that was powerful. The Azura was angry to such an extent that blood veins appeared on his neck, but there was no blue color. This was due to the fact that the blood of demons is not red, like that of mortals, but black, like the wing of an old and wise warrior. He tossed his head back and forth, hoping that Buddha was just joking and nothing more, that now he would come out from the wall or go down to the bottom from above, illuminating the city with a yellow but bright light. But instead of this desire, the demon heard his voice, which said, I told you, it will be a high price. But you, forgetting about caution, decided on the most precious and necessary thing, your hands, which helped you in battles. It's your fault. Now, having realized everything, Asura outright began to panic. He didn't know what to do, how to act, how to fight. The fight, so desired and necessary, would soon take place, but now Asura was sure that he would definitely not get victory simply for light movements and jumps, flying, and mocking laughter. Now he is in complete shit, which only he will have to clear up in order to maintain primacy in this hellish city of Tapana. Azura was still angry. His breath burned his lungs, and his tightly clenched teeth began to ache. The hands, those that remained, were simply cheerful below, at the level of the body, clenched into fists, which made the knuckles on them pale as sour cream, and the veins dark, like a starless night in the deepest and inaccessible forest. And then, blinded by rage, he heard a sweet and gentle voice, but at the same time powerful and ringing. It will not be surprising if its owner is a supreme demon, or a commander from the world of the gods. Are you Azura? The gentle voice asked calmly. The person or creature that had this voice stood in the shadows. It was clear that he, she, or she had 4 arms, that is, the same mechanism that the Azura had before the appearance and end of the dialogue with the Buddha. A gorgeous girl with 4 arms appeared in front of him. 2 of them were just a tool to simply crush the enemy. She stands in front of a wall with smoke coming out of it. The demoness is wearing a black tank top and pants, and her hair is tied into a ponytail. She looks at Azura with a serious expression on her face. Her hands are huge, much larger than those of an ordinary person. They are covered in muscles and look strong and sturdy. Smoke coming out of the wall creates a feeling of danger and threat. The smoke may indicate that she is in a dangerous situation. However, her serious expression shows that she is not afraid and is ready for any difficulties. The main thing that Asura noticed were the scars on his hands. Usually, if a demon has this on his body, then he has achieved enough experience and received the necessary and required level of wisdom. She, as those who crossed paths with her in any of the neighboring worlds would say, called herself Cold Wind. because after her appearance everything seemed to immediately freeze or become covered with a thick layer of frost. "I came all this way from the cold Narakas to meet you, you are invincible one," said the girl. Cold Naraki is a city located in the mountains of northern Japan. The city is known for its cold winters and gloomy atmosphere. In Naraki, there are rumors of ghosts that haunt the city at night. It is said that these ghosts are the souls of people who died in the city or its surroundings. There are also rumors that this city is cursed. This curse brings misfortune and death to everyone who lives in the city. This interesting city also has a secret that has been kept for many centuries. This mystery may be the key to solving the curse that lies on the city. But despite this, the warrior did not come here to lift the curse, which is a myth. But it is a fact that demons and gods are allowed to live among people. The demoness has long, purple hair. They are pulled back into a ponytail that falls below her shoulders. The hair is shiny and healthy, and it frames the girl's face, highlighting her chiseled features. The face is light with a pink blush. She has large, expressive eyes that look directly at Azura. Her lips are thin and plump, and they are slightly parted, as if she is smiling. Azura turned around and saw her. He didn't understand who it was, but his gut told him that this was exactly the one he was waiting for. This god or demon was that same Indira. She was beautiful, no doubt about it, but will she be such a strong warrior? "Fight me," Indira said calmly, looking Azura straight into his gray and empty eyes, as if in front of her was a doll, and not a living creature. Azura looked at her and thought about how to attack and where best to strike. And then, thinking about this, a picture of the past again appeared in his thoughts. Exactly the moment where the teacher spoke about the most powerful demons and deities. Listen carefully, because this may be useful to you. In Vaishnavism, one of the main branches of Hinduism, Vishnu is considered the strongest god. He is the guardian god of the universe, and attributes such as strength, power, wisdom and justice are attributed to him. Vishnu has many avatars, or incarnations, including Rama and Krishna. In Shaivism, the other main branch of Hinduism, Shiva is considered the strongest god. He is the destroyer god of the universe and attributes such as strength, power, energy and transcendence are attributed to him. Shiva is the lord of yoga and meditation, and he is often depicted as a linga, a symbol of his infinite power. What is being pumped by the demon is you, Azuras, but only Indira, and you are fully and efficiently prepared. Indira Gandhi is a strong and determined woman who has a number of qualities that made her a successful leader. She is a charismatic leader who knew how to inspire and motivate people. She is also very smart and has a sharp mind. As for the weaknesses that may be useful to you in the future, Gandhi was a very ambitious being who wanted to succeed in everything he did. Sometimes this ambition led her to make rash decisions. She also has an authoritarian management style, which has sometimes led to conflicts with her opponents and advisors. Gandhi is also a secretive woman who did not like to share information about her personal life. Sometimes the secrecy led to misunderstandings and hostility from the public. Remembering this, Asur began to think through the course of action and battle strategy. The battle will most likely take place near the cave. It is located on the server of the hellish city of Tapana. The cave is called Optimistic, as the supreme gods called it, and is one of the longest and deepest caves in all 8 hellish circles. The cave is a complex system of passages and galleries that extend over 260 kilometers in length and reach a depth of more than 20 meters. The cave consists of 2 main parts, the upper one, which is accessible to demons and lost souls, and the lower one, which is more complex and serves as a home for the Asura himself. In the center is the entrance to the cave, which is a wide grotto. Several passages diverge from the grotto, leading deeper into the cave. The walls of the cave are covered with stalactites and stalagmites, which were formed as a result of flowing water. Stalactites are deposits that form on the ceiling of a cave, and stalagmites are deposits that form on the floor of a cave. The demoness was not going to wait for an answer from Azura, her goal was to win. She very quickly picked up speed and flew towards the demon, who had probably been invincible until that moment. The warriors fight with fury. They exchange blows, summon and direct magic at each other. The cave is large and dark. On the floor of the cave there are fragments of stones and fragments of stalactites. The smell of blood and dust is in the air. Indira slightly grazed Azura's chest exactly where the tattoo was. The Azura flies 3 to 4 meters away from that place due to the strong blow that the demoness gave him. She calmly flew in a heap of smoke and it was as if it had never existed. The girl is used to this, her eyes no longer sting, and the sand crackles pleasantly on her teeth, although this used to infuriate her. Azura screamed loudly, flying further and further, but the girl did not abandon him. She flew towards him quickly, not even getting tired of such a large number of body movements and calling on magical energy. At the moment, the outcome of the battle is unclear. Indira was rapidly approaching the demon's body. He was conscious, but could not do anything yet. The boy tried to remember something else from school, from what the teacher told them. He racked his brain and began rummaging through his memory and found what he was looking for. The image of a teacher and mentor, a coach and a father again appeared before his eyes. To put a block during sparring, you must perform the following actions, he commanded. Position yourself correctly. Before placing the block, make sure you are in the correct stance. Your stance should be stable and balanced so that you can move quickly and easily in any direction. Predict the impact. Try to predict where your opponent's blow will be directed. This will help you place the block at the right time and in the right place. Make a block. To block, you must place a limb, arm, leg, forearm, between your opponent's punch and your body. The block must be tight and stable so that it can stop the blow. Monitor the situation. Once you have placed the block, continue to monitor the situation. Your opponent may be able to bypass your block or strike somewhere else. While Azura was remembering all this and thinking about what to do correctly, the demoness struck again and again, one after another, the second stronger than the first, and the third stronger than the second. Asur understood that his strength was already running out and he would not be able to hold out for long. Especially without mechanical arms. After this is all that happened and will happen next, the girl spoke. What a disappointment. I heard that you are the strongest in Tupun, but you are no different from an ordinary demon, a simple non-entity who can't do anything, not even fight. I wonder if your past opponents gave up because they were simply afraid or felt sorry for you. The demoness said with a laugh. Having said this, she continues to stand and look forward at Azura, her eyes wide open, pupils dilated. Her brows are furrowed and her lips are pursed. She appears tense and focused, ready for the enemy's next move. The girl's facial expression can be interpreted as one of rage, determination, or concentration. She wanted to anger Azura, and she succeeded. The demon, getting even angrier, gathered his strength into a fist and moved towards his rival, who unceremoniously insulted him. The Asur raised his hand, which was clenched into a fist, with the goal of hitting this impudent girl and knocking her onto the sandstone, and then summoning magic and frying her ass. Yes, the plan was good, and Asur was going to follow it, believing that it would work and he would win and again be the invincible being of all the worlds of the planet. But Indira is not as stupid as Asur expected. She waited until he got close enough to her for the destructive fist of infinity to reach his jaw and tell him to give up trying to organize an attack well and split the success into executing his strategy. Azura received blow after blow on his small face. My cheekbones hurt, my nose burned from the amount of blood that flowed from there. The bones of the legs and arms ached, and the muscles seemed to be all torn and could not be restored. He forgot this pain, or rather, he never knew it. Usually this pain was felt by those who fought with him. Having received a new, powerful blow, the demon remembered those with whom he had fought the same battles. More precisely, I remembered their last words, I am not afraid of you. These words, as Asur later learned, speak of the strength of spirit and determination of a warrior. They express his readiness to face death face to face. I will take revenge. These words speak of the warrior's anger and hatred. They express his desire to take revenge on his killer. The demon already knew that everyone would take revenge on him, so he was not surprised. And many other phrases. The demon also remembered his first love. Azura was a powerful demon who ruled the world. He was very proud and domineering, and he always got what he wanted. One day he saw goddess Lakshmi and he fell in love with her at first sight. Lakshmi was the goddess of beauty and wealth, and she was very kind and compassionate. Azura knew that she would never love him, but he still continued to pursue her. Finally, Lakshmi gave in and married Azura. Their marriage was difficult, but they were very happy together, but not for long. One day, to avenge the death of his brother, monsters sneaked into their house and killed his wife. Since then, the demon no longer lets anyone near him. Indira saw tears gathering in Azura's eyes and, reading the story in his eyes, became upset. She wanted to help, to console, but no. Asur looked at her with the eyes of a madman and made her understand that now only the future is important to him, and certainly not the past. The Asura rushed at her, hoping to attack unexpectedly. But no, the demoness was completely ready for this. Raising her left hand up, she began to whisper something. Asur could not understand what she was saying, but he understood immediately that this was a call of magic. She summons the magic of the ice block. She stands in a fighting stance, her arms extended forward, and she casts a spell. A blue light appears above her head, which gradually turns into an ice block. The ice block is a powerful weapon that can be used for both offense and defense. It can be used to create walls to protect oneself from attacks, or to create sharp blades to attack one's enemies. The Asura, seeing this, moves back, being in shock and horror. This is the first time he has seen such magic and such a powerful creature. The demoness gradually lowers her hands so that they are aimed at Asura. Her slow movements are frightening, and the large piece of ice behind her back makes her even more afraid. Now her eyes radiate nothing but rage and the desire to win. She releases the created magical energy at Asura. The blow was so accurate that it caused a lot of damage to the demon's theme. The demoness usually calls this blow a strike of retribution for people like Asura. The block symbolizes destruction. This blow can also be redemptive. The block this time symbolizes redemption. The girl uses this blow with a block to atone for the sins or mistakes of the one at whom the beam of magical energy is directed. A block of ice, summoned by the warrior, fell to the bottom, dragging Asura behind it. She quickly went down, burning and freezing the warrior's limbs at the same time. He and the boulder fell to the floor. The magic dissipated, and a terrible but pleasant picture opened before all the residents. Asura, feeling pain, heard voices and phrases that sounded from them. What? Asura lost? He didn't stand a chance against the demon from Cold Narek. I never liked that bastard. It serves him right. He's finally on our level. The relationships of other demons to Asura were complex and contradictory. Asuras were often proud and arrogant. He was also very demanding of his allies or other residents of the city of Tapana. He was also very domineering and controlling, which led to conflict in relationships. According to the stories of local creatures, Asura's enemies were. Vasuki, the Serpent King, is an ally of some Asuras. He helped them in their battles with the gods, and he is a respected leader in their community. Rahu, the demon head, is a friend of some Asuras. He is an expert in magic and he often helps them in their plans. Hearing all this, the demon screamed at the top of his voice, or at least as loudly as he could. No, I didn't lose. No, Asura was defeated for the first time in his life. His face turned into a bloody mess, his teeth fell out along with pieces of his cheeks and tongue. There was a large hole in the right side of my head that would take a very, very long time to heal. The arms were twisted in different directions and were also bleeding, rooks and intoxicating. Looking at all this, the demons and sinful souls continued to speak among themselves at the top of their voices. It is a revenge. Hallelujah! Let's kill him again. When he comes to life, he will still be weak and will not do anything to us. He turned out to be such a weakling. It's true what they say, for a big fish, there's always a bigger fish. It turns out that he is so easy to defeat. Ha ha ha. The invincible Asura now lies in his own blood. Kill him. Well, what are you waiting for? He won't do anything to you now. Ha ha ha. And then the Asura realized that Buddha not only took away the mechanism, but also all the powers along with it. He was in pain, but he continued to listen as the other ghouls mocked, made plans for revenge and mocked. He wanted to get up and kill them all, but every movement gave off a terrible and piercing pain. His legs were covered in deep scratches, from which scarlet blood flowed with every inhalation and exhalation. Residents of the hellish city of Tupun did not let up. Come on, crush him. Let's. We want to see such a spectacle. Tear him into pieces. It's still a resurrection, but at least it'll be fun. Let's hang him and beat him every time we pass by him. Good idea. Asura, his mother, is a weakling. We were afraid all this time of this weakling? Kill him, don't delay. Kill. If he comes to life right now, kill him again. Kill, we are all waiting. They screamed, beat, tore out the skin, stood on the shrine, threw their arms and legs in different directions, spat, drained the blood, and broke out even slightly sensitive fingers. That is, they did everything that Asur himself once did when he settled in the 8th hellish town of Tapana. And this all went on for a very long time. This is no longer fun. Even beating him is tiring. He still constantly comes to life. I'm already tired of this pissing bastard. What are we going to do now? All the residents of Tapena did not think long. They decided to expel him from hell and carried out the decision instantly. The Asura subconsciously understood that he was not in hell. Now his body lies in the forest. The trees are bare, without leaves, and their branches are covered with frost. There is snow on the ground, which creates patterns on the surface. In the distance you can see the fog that envelopes the forest, creating a feeling of mystery and mysticism. The forest looks gloomy and inhospitable. This may symbolize the dark thoughts or feelings of those monsters who threw him here. It creates a feeling of loneliness and isolation. Fog creates a feeling of mystery and mysticism. This may symbolize the mystery or unknown that awaits Asura after he opens his eyes. Asura's body lay on the cold ground and showed no signs of life. The arms and legs are open, but the scratches and abrasions have disappeared. All that remained were the memories of that battle that completely ruined his life. Soon he will open his eyes and realize that it will never be as early as before. He had a wonderful dream where he learned to play ball with an incomprehensible creature and how he then bit him. How he stroked the cat, who thought he had found his owner. Yes, in this state, Asura has a lot to think about and reflect on, because then it may be too late. Opening his eyes, the demon saw the same old man who in paradise bore the name Buddha. With a smile on his face, he looked at the boy's awakening, without opening his eyes, because even without eyes he could understand when Asura would rise and what he would say. So he was the first to start the conversation again. Stupid child. I told you that you will pay too high a price for your desires. The Asura lay there and could not move. Although the wounds had healed and his mind had become clear, the pain had not gone away. He still could not move normally, only speak and turn his miniature head. Damn bastard! Asura shouted. He looks at the Buddha, his eyes wide and his mouth open. His posture is tense and he appears scared or shocked. All this time he was in shock from what he had just experienced. He experienced something unexpected and frightening, namely his defeat. His life is over. Give me back my mechanism, my hands, they are mine and I need them. Buddha calmly listened to what the demon was saying. He suspected what he would ask. But the result of the transaction cannot be cancelled or altered. Everything has already been done and decided. Asura, God began, I left each of your hands to the 4 heavenly kings. They are strong too. The 4 heavenly kings are the 4 deities who rule the 4 directions of the world. They are considered protectors of peace and fighters against evil. Eastern direction, Vaishravana, is the keeper of treasures, wealth and prosperity. Western direction, Virupach, is the guardian of death and rebirth. Northern direction, Dhritarashtra, is the keeper of strength and courage. Southern direction, Virudaka, is the guardian of justice and order. The 4 heavenly kings are considered protectors of the world and fighters against evil. They protect the world from demons and other threats. They also help people in their spiritual quests. Son of a bitch, Asur squeezed out. Buddha, with a clear and wide smile in his eyes, bent down towards Asura and began to speak to the demon again, in a cheerful and harmless voice. In your current state, you won't even be able to touch them. What will you do now? You couldn't even cope with Indra even with all your hands. Asura was evil. Maybe this was due to a loss or something else. He was angry that the old man who set him up was absolutely right. Asura could not cope with the demoness one way or the other, because he does not know and cannot do what she does. So as not to show your fear and despair. Asur shouted, damn you! Why are you doing this to me? Why are you ruining my life? Oh, because you wanted it yourself, Asura. Your soul was waiting for a worthy opponent, I got it for you. Now, live with it, because it's not my fault. There is only you and your pride. You have no one else to blame but yourself, so I'm not your help. Get into your soul and then you will find answers to all your questions. After these words, the Buddha turned around and left, leaving Asura alone in the cold forest. He lay there, beating his fists on the frozen ground and yelling, you son of a bitch! I got out of the depths of Avicii. And what do you think is left over to stop me? No, you're wrong. The Avicii depths are the lowest part of Avicii, where suffering is greatest. Here creatures are born and die again and again, experiencing endless torment. They cannot free themselves from Avicii until they have exhausted the karma that brought them there. The creatures experience endless physical and emotional suffering, they are surrounded by fire, cold, hunger and thirst, they are constantly pursued by demons and other terrible creatures. They can find no solace or hope. Indra? For heavenly kings? Ha! Asur shouted further, I will crush them all.